Ladies and gentlemen, do you recognize the feeling whenever you are at a family party or with friends or wherever, at a place somewhere, and there is a television playing a series, a soap series like episode number 7955? And the television is playing in the back, some people are watching, and you watching that and you say like, okay, but I can predict like easily the outcome of this episode. And so it's very boring to watch. Next year, come at the same place, the same series is still playing, and then it's episode 7000 so much, plus of course 52 episodes, but some of these soaps actually play 5 times a week, and you say, okay, but it's still the same story. Whereas the development of the story, and yet people are sometimes very interested and very intrigued, and they feel very happy to watch, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Why am I saying that to you? For the simple reason that our research here with the WBMP, here the result you see in the Beethoven symphonies played with Alberto, beautiful forehand transcriptions of Carl Czerny with its Beethoven in Whole Beat. Whenever I think about our research and the application of that, the solution it provides to many problems, many challenges that we actually developed over the course of 1 century that seemingly we cannot get solved, like for instance the metronome arcs to be much too quick or too difficult or musically nonsensical or what have you. Instead of going to the solution, we go to a kind of plot twists, eternal plot twists like in these soap series that you can see from miles of front, you know that these won't work. And so in a way, our research on the WBMP, especially when you go to published material about metronome arcs that of course totally disregard everything that we do here, which I can understand. I mean, I'm just an idiot from Belgium with a very small YouTube channel. We try to reach out to as many people as we can, but that's very hard. So I cannot blame people not knowing about our work, but looking at their work. I sometimes have this feeling that I have with these soap series, you know, you can see how this thing is going to play, how this thing is going to turn out. And the climax is oftentimes, if not always, an anticlimax, because let's face it, whenever we go into these territories of metronome research, these insane tempi, according to modern musicology that these people of the 19th century had, the Beethovens, the Schumanns, the Mendelssohn, you name it, then the end result is always the same thing. They made mistakes. It was Beethoven who made a mistake. The guy couldn't operate a metronome. But it was obvious, right? Because his metronome arcs do not make any sense. When you talk to these people that actually ventilate these theories of the broken metronome and things like that, they say, oh, no. That we are very serious. It's not, we didn't say that, but I mean, your theory is, of course, absolutely unproven and whatever. So, in spite of the fact that what we do here is so simple, you don't need to be a genius. If this research happened to be in need of a genius, I wouldn't be actually executing that. So you just need normal people with just an open mind and they say like, this doesn't work, that works, so go for that solution. And guess what? That's the paradigm shift of everything we do. That's also why we call it a paradigm shift. You don't need to change much, you change a very little bit and then see, boom, everything is solved. So I'm saying all of that because I stumbled across this article about Schumann's metronome markings and especially his Kinderszenen. Now, you might remember, I have been talking about it in the past. The book will have a more extensive chapter on also Alfred Brendel's take on the Kinderszenen, which is really, really, really interesting. In fact, Alfred Brendel is knocking on the door of Whole Beat, but there seems to be something that holds these people back from just applying that. Anyways, Henle made, of course, an edition of the Kinderszenen, and it is an author by the name of Michael Struck. It's this guy who is in charge of that. And these guys, I have all respect for them because they know a lot of details, lot of things. But when it comes to tempo, they seem always to lose their way. So what we are going to do in this episode, I'm going to read through some stuff and comment on that. There will be 2 articles. there will be this article, and in the middle of that, there is a reference to an interview that this Mr. Scheifert had with Michael Struck. And we are going to combine all of that together and see what you make out of that, because you, as a viewer of this channel, you have a power that you probably cannot even think of how big it is. You have the solution in the palm of your hand, and you got it all for free. How cool is that? So, thumbs up for myself. No, but seriously, you will read this text with me, and you would probably give the same answers and comments if you were here in this seat. So, without further ado, let's go through these points. So, Henle Verlag publishes Schumann, and of course, Schumann is, if compared to Beethoven, has an equally big metronome problem as Beethoven. It's maybe less known, although Schumann, you have here the Kinderszenen. There are pieces in the Kinderszenen that we still play in whole beat, believe it or not. And now, of course, we are in a time that in which musicology, but also musicians, and I would say partly also the audience that of course have been influenced by these people, try to, like for instance Traumerei, that's a piece we still play in whole beat, to try to speed these pieces up. And so the last pieces of that great tradition that we are still playing in, Opus 10 number 3 by Chopin, the Etude, La Tristesse. So these last pieces that still are there, and everybody likes that. The audience now is forced to just accept also to speed up these pieces. And guess what? In these very slow, like lento adagio pieces, there is a possibility that we actually can play in single beat. And then we will say like, okay, now case is closed. We can play it in the most of the cases, right? And so go back from that. Good luck, because it's the same thing as if you drive on a highway in Germany at 200 kilometers per hour. I would not recommend that, but if you even go 160 kilometers per hour and you just take an exit to a town and you have to drive 50, do it if you have to, I would say. Then it feels uncomfortable. It takes time for you to go from fast to slow. It's like Quantz wrote already in the Street Eyes in the mid of the 18th century. It's like playing too fast. 1750, what is it? 52, if I remember well. Quantz writes, if you play too fast, it's like eating too spicy food. If you taste on regular food, you won't have the taste anymore. You have to eat it a few times and then you can go back to a normal taste. Anyways, when Henle publishes on Schumann's music, they have to do something with the metronome marks because they are publishing the metronome marks, right? And so they dive into the issue. Then they give you their position, and it is a very twisted position. We're going to read that together, and then we will come to the points by itself automatically, I would say. So, if you were to comment on tempo and to give your take on this issue, and you would refuse any other solution than a single beat solution, which is the modern solution, that's how we read the metronome. And if you land on this video for the first time, the thing I'm talking about, the solution to the metronome marks, is obviously the whole beat metronome practice. That's a WBMP, how we call that. That's where you do not take one tick for the beat. For the note value in the metronome mark, you take 2 ticks. That's like how many physicists still use their pendulum today, and how it was used also in the past and described a lot. So there is nothing strange to that. So when you refuse the WBMP, of course, the single beat modern use of the metronome is everything that's there, and it doesn't work. So you have to find an excuse for Schumann, hopefully in a way that Schumann doesn't look like an idiot, like not like Beethoven. Recently on my channel, someone commented like, yeah, but Beethoven was notorious for not knowing how to use his metronome. Really? The composer of the 9th Symphony didn't know how to use that simple device. It's a tick-tock. I mean, you cannot, how can people even think that? That's something that Henle cannot write. Oh, so what do? They start with the quote that actually puts everybody on the wrong foot, as we would say in Dutch. Instead of just going after the problem and saying it is impossible, many metronome marks by Schumann, and they go and diminish the value of the metronome and metronome marks immediately, not by facts, but by quoting someone. So they start quoting Celibidache, the famous conductor, who happened to play also like pieces much slower than regularly, not in whole beat. So the quote goes here, you cannot define tempo. Tempo has no existence of its own, so it can be neither wrong nor right. What the world has not yet understood, tempo has nothing to do with speed. There has no singular tempo that you can take from Berlin to London. Metronome marking 92. What's 92? It's idiocy. Every concert hall, every piece, every movement has its own absolute tempo, defining exactly this situation and no other. This is the most ridiculous nonsense I've ever read in my life. This is the absolute reverse of what a tempo is. A tempo is the foundation of everything. So, tempo has nothing to do with speed. I mean, what else is tempo than the speed indication? Of course, what Celibidache might mean here is that tempo is so much more than speed, and there he is right. But in this context, he goes from diminishing the value of a metronome mark to say like, yeah, I take my own tempo. That's what he wants to do. Because these people, also Celibidache, and we have quotes from the 19th century in the same regard, we are no difference. People don't want to stick to metronome marks because I have my own view on Schumann, sir. My Beethoven would like my performance. Well, good for you if you think that. That's not what we do here. We want to solve the issue. We don't want to go make Celibidache go from, what is it, Berlin to London with his 92 in his bag. It's his problem. But that has nothing to do with the issue being the metronome marks at 92 doesn't make sense. It is nothing in the single beat reading. You get my point? We have to solve first what Schumann meant with this 92, and from there you do whatever you want. Henle, however, in the same article at the end, and if you're still here, stick to the end because you will not believe what you're reading. Henle is gonna say make the same point as me, but much stronger. I wouldn't dare to do that. So, we continue. Tempo and metronome markings are always a difficult subject. Why is that? Just reading that sentence. Why would be a metronome mark? It's a tick-tock. It's a difficult subject. If it is, I would like to know why. Are the focus of my blog post today on Schumann's extremely controversial metronome markings, especially those in the Kinderszenen? No, that's not true. The Kinderszenen are just the most noticeable pieces because there you have the Traumerei and a few other pieces that we still play in whole beat. Therefore, the Kinderszenen are controversial. But the controversy in the metronome marks is because of the implayability of the metronome marks as a whole. And don't point me in the comment section or elsewhere to like the Traumerei, I can play that in single beat. I can play that in single beat too. For me, it doesn't make any sense, but that's not the discussion. I want you to play the ridiculous metronome marks. But just as a side remark, a hot button issue, indeed I know. Well, I know that too. The validity and obligatory nature of Schumann's metronome markings are at least as problematic as Beethoven's markings. Okay, but I still didn't read why they are so problematic. So much seems to us today to be either extremely fast or else much too slow. Extremely fast still means, Mr. Seifert, possible. They are not possible. I'm not saying all of them, but enough to make you wonder there is something that we do wrong. And some might be too slow. I wonder which metronome marks do we feel today as being too slow? I would really love to see those pieces. Because if you go to the performance practice of today, we play everything faster than whole beat and slower than single beat. It is just what it is. As an urtext publisher, we consider the original metronome markings to be necessarily crucial. Crucial even. That will lead to the point, and that's a great point they make at the end. But they don't realize, I think, the implication. And worth communicating. Well, I think so. If you read certainly Beethoven, you would communicate about it every day because for Beethoven it was the most important thing of his score, as he wrote himself. So that is why they are all reproduced in our music editions. Great. I mean, just the fact that you have to mention that. I mean, that's like, really? Schumann writes a metronome mark, he publishes that, and you see, we found it necessary to, if it is an option, not to publish them. And personally, I'm firmly convinced that in any case, it's worthwhile to deal, first of all, seriously with this information and not to ignore it. I wonder if we get to talk one day, Mr. Seifert and I, if he would have the same compliment for me, because we take the metronome mark seriously, and I can guarantee you we are one of the only ones on this planet. Because it's not enough to talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. Here they are. Here, all the Beethoven symphonies. And there's much more to come. There will be 4 of these boxes, by the way, by the end of 26. So we do that. I guess, I hope, I don't know. I hope that if we are in contact, that Mr. Seifert said, these people, they take them seriously, because that's what we want to do as well. The only thing we have a little bit different of opinion. Would they accept our outcome? I don't know. I'm just asking. So anyways, let's continue. But the good thing that Henle thinks that the metronome marks are important. I cannot underline. It's perfect. But again, where is the next mile? You have to say, okay, who's implementing those? And not to ignore it. This is an opportunity, not a nuisance. And if you still want to play at significantly other basic tempo than indicated by Schumann, and that is the point that I mentioned before, then that's at least a deliberate act, which we think as well, even if rather disrespectful. So Henle writes here, and guys, let's applaud Henle for that, because it is true. I mean, these people know a lot. They just don't seem not to have like the final clue. But they literally say, if you ignore the metronome marks given by this composer, you are disrespectful to the composer. I've never said that. My entire YouTube channel, I made over 1,200 videos. You can check them out, all of them. The only thing I'm saying is, like, when you do not play in the metronome marks indicated by the composer, and that's just a starting point, your interpretation, because we care all about our interpretation, right? And it is important, starts from there. It's only a starting point. But it is true that if you change that tempo, you change everything. That's why the Celibidache quote is nonsense and true at the same time. Tempo is not speed. Tempo is much more, but it's the speed where the tempo starts. I mean, of course. How difficult is that? But Henle is saying, if you do not take them seriously, that's a deliberate act. Fine. But it's disrespectful. Well, there is not a single Kinderszenen on this planet except a recording that Alberto Sanna made on my channel years ago. It's one of the first recordings he made. The Fritz was not even ready to record. It's still on the Frenzel, the 1825 pianoforte. You can check it out. It's still on the channel. He plays every piece exactly in the metronome marks indicated by Schumann. And you can say, yo, but that's in whole beat. The ticks are guiding the performance. And it's the only recording on this entire globe in the entire history of recordings. We should get some credit for that, don't you think? Saying that myself. Realize that now. But it's true, right? Because it's a textbook application of what actually Henle actually wants us to do, wants the musicians to do. They also see that nobody is playing that. Of course, we know why. Let's continue. Then, unfortunately, the Robert Schumann and so forth summarized all of Schumann metronome marks in a useful table. By the way, if you click on that, it leads to a 404 non-existing link. That is a pity, because really that would be a very helpful list. By the way, for those of you who stay here around for a longer time, you know we're working on a database. It's almost, the user interface is almost finished. That will be the IMSLP of the metronome marks. We aim for the highest quality. That will be a community project. We're working on this like for almost 2 years with a small team, but the metronome database will contain all of the metronome marks, and more than that, you will be able to play with it. You will be able to say, like, give me all the metronome marks for an Allegro moderato between 1830 and 1860, and maybe only for common time with 30-second notes as fast as structural note value, or ornaments, whatever. You can do, that is a research tool beyond imaginations. Okay, just stay tuned for that. But now to the Kinderszenen and their authentic authentic. Well, what's in the name? So extremely off-putting. Why is it so hard to say, like, guys, do we miss something? If the metronomization of the Kinderszenen, and they go in a little bit in detail, but the book will go much more in detail about the Kinderszenen. Will get like almost a chapter within a chapter. There are several sets of metronome marks by Schumann, by Clara, by Böhm. I mean, there is no doubt that these are correct numbers, and so you say like off-putting metronome. That was Robert Schumann. Schumann knocks on your door, opens it, and you're practicing the Kinderszenen. And you say like, hey, thank you for your extremely off-putting metronome marks. I mean, I know, I mean, if the people of Henle are watching this, I'm not downplaying them, but it makes me a little bit annoyed. Why is it so hard to just say like, we have the greatest composers in those times? I mean, what was there in their water, you know? And Beethoven's Vienna, I wouldn't say not so many good things, but what happened? An outburst of the like incredible talented people, and they're like, "What did you do with your tempo indication, Mr. Schumann?" I mean, he was married to the best pianist ever lived in the 19th century. Maybe he didn't hear his pieces well enough. He wasn't deaf, and his metronome was not broken. We're gonna read that in a second. So let's continue. Not make this video longer than necessary. So then comes the point with the interview, and let's go to there. I will just adjust the screen a little bit here like this. So this is the interview with Michael Struck on Schumann's metronome markings, and we just quickly go through that because there are very cool questions that are asked here, but the answers are also cool. So it's again, the answer is knocking on our door. The question, are the printed metronome marks in Schumann's work really correct? And there is undoubtedly, yes, it's secured that they are correct. And then follows like a little bit of background story. Also the statement that Clara Schumann made that the metronome, Schumann's metronome was not correct. She took that back. And there is a reason for that. I'm not going into that. It's speculation, because also if you read the letters by Clara Schumann and Brahms and other letters, and the diary by Clara Schumann, I don't know if it's translated, but it's highly interesting if you want to read, if you really want to be like close to these people, you know, the answers are not always there, oftentimes not, but you can create a context. But there is an explanation why she said that. It's a little bit similar to why Beethoven said, fuck the metronome, like something in German. I don't know, I'm sorry for using that word, but it's something along the lines of that. By the way, quoted by Schindler, and we take that quote seriously. Schindler, you know. But it's like nobody cares about them. That's what Brahms also said. Like, don't bother, because you spend a year finding the right tempo. A year finding the right tempo. That's how these people were serious about it. That's what Brahms wrote, and then nobody cares about it. So that's still today valid. Brahms would say, like, see, I was right. There, Clara, you took all the time and effort to metronomize the works of your husband, and see, nobody cares. Except that one recording. And we're going to make more Schumann. Don't worry. Secondly, we can of course not rule out that some metronomes were falsely printed. That's always, of course, but you have to compare, and it's very easy. And I mean, it's not an adagio with this notation that is like completely different than another adagio. I'm now in the midst of making my notation course for Beethoven Symphony. That's like will be a standalone course, also part of the full Beethoven experience. Check it out on our website. Links in the description box. But I mean, you can see it. We have created the overview, like all the movements and fascia structure, note volume, time signature, Italian tempo words, and it's unbelievable how these composers were like accurate. So he rules that out. But then, question, were the markings really made by Schumann himself? A little bit of backstory. You have Schumann, you have, of course, a few sets of Schumann, and so on and so on. Schumann can't check his edition. I mean, he rules out, like, is there any mistake other than that we can point to, like, okay, the metronome marks do not make any sense. That's behind it. Keep that in mind. And that we can say, like, yeah, we don't have to pay attention to them. And again, if it were so that the Kinderszenen were just like faulty metronome marks, we still have 50,000 others to look at. So it's not something like here a little bit and there one. No, it's a whole. You have to look at everything in the same way. If Beethoven's metronome was broken, then that of Schumann as well, that of Henri Hertz as well, Mendelssohn's also, and you go on and on and on. All the metronomes were broken because they cannot even function faulty. That's not possible. You have two weights and they determine the tempo. Anyways, and then it comes. Could it be that Schumann, and so that's a great question. Could it be that Schumann and Böhme, some other guy, friend of the Schumanns, who wrote Give Metronome Mark, simply confused the reference value? For example, could they have intended eighths instead of fourths? For instance, Schumann, and there it comes, sets the tempo of the Traumerei at quarter note 100. A very fast tempo. By the way, that's not very fast because it is eighth note 100 in whole beat, right? But anyways, that's their single beat modern approach. Böhme went as far as writing quarter note 132, but if you divide that in half, namely eighths in place of fourths, that's whole beat, by the way. Then you're approaching today's tempo of the Traumerei. Now, you could say this passage that should have led them just to open the door for whole beat. But this passage actually is going to kill the Traumerei as you know it now. Mark my words. If this doesn't succeed in like becoming a kind of mainstream, then the Traumerei in 20 years will be played at exactly single beat tempo. And the audience will say, now finally, we hear Schumann as he is supposed to be played. And then they will come home and they say to their wives or husbands or children, like, and we hate the music. I cannot say that they're going to say that, but you can ask it. Maybe I can still ask it in 20 years, who knows? But that's going to happen unless we succeed in convincing these people that they have to look in another direction. Then Michael Strück says, and the answer is, of course, telling everything. That's an interesting hypothesis, but it doesn't work. Why? I mean, everybody, literally everybody plays Traumerei at half of the tempo. And Strück said it doesn't work. Really? That's the best answer you have, and you don't have the slightest impression like everybody does it like that. The greatest musicians on this planet play the Traumerei like that. Everybody loves the piece. The Traumerei is one of the most known pieces. Guess why? It's whole beat. Guys, if you play everything in whole beat, everything will become as popular as this. I'm 100% sure that the two rapid tempi kill everything. But you say it doesn't work? Really? For even Clara Schumann, and then the argument comes for even Clara Schumann. When we asked about Schumann's tempo. Even Clara Schumann in her instructive edition sets the tempo for Traumerei at quarter note 80. Well, that still works. I think, if I remember well, but it's like 3 years ago or something that we recorded, Alberto recorded also Clara Schumann's 80. It's no problem. It's a little slower. And so what? The piece takes a few seconds longer. But why would that not work? Okay, we continue. Rather, my proposition is that Schumann and his contemporaries interpreted slow to be a more fluent, not halting tempo in all in all more lively than today. And it was not only caused by the instruments that were used and that faded out faster. That's the best answer you have. Like, you talk about Schumann, who wrote an instruction for young pianists that say, like, don't play like the virtuoso players, like waves of an ocean. Keep a steady tempo. If there is one composer or one tradition where you could say, like, these people were inflexible in tempo, no modern tempo rubato as we know now, and also is partly described already by Carl Czerny in 1839. But very, 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 not in a way Czerny even says, like, okay, but if you apply that, like a little modification, the audience should not be, that should be not perceptible. The audience should not hear that. And that's the answer of Michael Strück. Maybe it's like more fluent. And actually, between the lines, what he's actually saying, like, if you play that really at quarter note 100 in single beat, it's awful. So use a little bit of fluctuation, the wave thing that Schumann actually hated. That little book by Schumann, by the way, you should memorize that. Then that will make you realize that Schumann was not an idiot and knew exactly what he wanted, and that his scores are exactly there. If Schumann marks written, you slow down. If he doesn't, you don't do that. Simple. Tempo is not equal to speed. There is the quote of Celibidache. Now it's already a fact. But music, tempo has the quality of flexibility. Really? Well, that's called tempo rubato. That's an interpretation already, but it's still something that quite decisively determines the character of a piece. Let's applaud for this, because that's so correct. So just make that statement harder. If you think that the tempo determines the character, then put it on the forefront. And don't downplay it by saying tempo is not equal to speed, we have flexibility, but still, yeah, it's a little bit. It is the character of the piece. That's why Beethoven was freaking out if you didn't play his works in his metronomized way. Anyway, so do I understand correctly that you appeal to the musicians to take Schumann's original metronome marks more seriously? Yes, I urgently suggest taking a closer look, not by letting the metronome tick while one plays, but by attempting to play the piece as close as possible in the tempo intended by Schumann. A point that appears important to me is also that Schumann noted several ritardandi. How can you really become slower if your basic tempo is already too slow? Well, who says that your basic tempo is already too slow? It's because you lack the musical imagination to do that. I'm sorry to be so hard, but it's not me who's saying that it doesn't work. Then you make it ritardando. You don't have to pull the handbrake, then it's just, what is ritardando? You go a little slower as possible. And guys, is this really the argument? Let me change that view here again. Is that the argument? That's the final, that's actually saying like, yeah, but we actually have no clue. And then to wrap this video up, but while reading that, feel empowered. You, as a viewer now, watching this, listening, if you're still in here, let me know in the comment. I always like to know the people that really have the attention span to stay with me like until the end. Feel that power. You have the answers, but here comes something that you could do. So he summarizes this interview that we just talked about, but then he says like, yes, please do write me anyway about the effect on you of this possibly painful. Now, following the metronome marks is painful. Does that mean that you really hate the idea of this music to be played in single beat? Because then I would like to embrace you. And please keep that pain with you, because it's not necessary. The other direction is where you should go. Perhaps salutary sting, and or whatever you personally have to say on the subject. So I will link this blog post in the description, and go ahead and reach out to these people in a friendly way. We're all in this together. There is only one Schumann. There's only one Beethoven. We have to share this music. And arguing is like, okay, I might have felt during this video a little bit annoyed, but it's Henle Verlag. I cannot compete with their reach. I can yell as much. I can buy like loudspeakers that, on the biggest festival in the world would even kill the sound there, and I would not reach as many people as Henle. And that makes me a little bit annoyed. They should know better. And it's not that we do not exist. If they go on YouTube or Google and they type in Schumann's metronome mark and they do that, they will find our videos. They will find them. And so I would love to talk to them. It should not be on camera. I would love to do it on camera afterwards, but just meet these people. And so maybe we should reach out more, but it's always the same thing. And I wonder sometimes if they have the possibility to go all in, because you can also reverse the thing. And that's really the final thing I will say here. You can also reverse it and saying like, what you read here, as I said myself during the video, it's like Whole Beat knocking on your door. They know it. They see it. At least that's a possibility. Michael Streck, maybe. I don't know why he has to say it doesn't work. I mean, have some imagination. When musicians say, or musicologists say it doesn't work, I mean, really? And recently, a friend of mine, she talked to a very famous, I will not name the names, like Beethoven researcher, also conductor, and she talked about our work. And then he said, like, yeah, but there were already attempts, like, it takes then a long time, right? Beethoven. It takes a long time before the piece ends. I mean, it says it all, right? But I would love to be more in contact with these people. Maybe it will happen. But Henle Verlag should be like, guys, the solution is there in your text. Okay, reach out to these people, write about our work, and maybe when enough of you will do that, they will maybe contact us, or maybe even contact you, and maybe there will be a dialogue. I'm pretty sure that when I do that, I get like either no response, which have happened in the past, or a response like, yeah, but that has been proven to be not true. So thank you for your attention and goodbye. Who knows? Okay, with that said, go and watch your episode 7776 of that soap series if you enjoyed that. In Whole Beat, I have to say, yeah, it's a little bit boring because we know the plot twist at the end. But let's be honest, it's cool. It's cool. And you know what is even cooler? Having you here still in this video. I cannot say enough how much that means to me. So, with that having said, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching. We see each other very soon again. Bye.